This is the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Now, I also want to read an email from Camilla. She's listening in California, and the subject line for her email is Islamic invasion. And I'll just read you the first part. It's too long for me to read the whole thing. And Camilla, I read the whole thing carefully, and I appreciate all the detail that you went into in explaining this. But she's speaking as a Christian from Lebanon who has come to the United States. She said she legally immigrated to the U.S. in the 80s because of the civil war in Lebanon between Christians and Muslims. So she knows what she's referring to here from personal experience. She says, I'm a listener to Relevant Radio. I'm a Christian Lebanese, a mix of Maronite and Syriac Orthodox. And the subject of Islamic invasion, she says, is so important to us. Her long and thoughtful email basically centers around this issue. She says she and many Christians in the Middle East fear Muslims. She says, yes, I fear them. They hate us. They think we're sinners. They think it's a sin to wish us happy birthday or Easter or Christmas or to mourn our dead. They don't believe we deserve mercy. They will not be governed by a non-Muslim. So their goal in life is to work toward that goal of being governed by Muslims. She goes into great detail about things that she alleges, and I believe her. I have no reason not to believe what you're saying here, Camilla. But things like lying and things, I have no way of knowing what some of those things are on a day-to-day basis. I mean, there are Christians who lie, of course, but she describes a system in Muslim-dominated countries that is difficult for us to imagine in this life, or in this country, rather, because we don't live that way. We don't operate that way. And so I just want to acknowledge that what you're saying here, Camilla, has the ring of truth. But the best I can say is, knowing what you know about your own experience and the difficulties that you experience there, all the more reason why we should be attentive to how things develop here so that we don't become destabilized or any further destabilized in this country than we already are. Now, Cyrus, we've got some audio, and I think this, because this is one of the issues that Camilla brings up about men marrying underage girls and how it's sanctioned in Islam. And so this is he's an Imam, and he's being interviewed by a young woman who...
His daughter.
Yeah, his daughter. That's what I'm saying. It says that she is his daughter. She's obviously younger than him. And you're going to hear the interview. It's in English, and he's explaining from Muslim law some pretty unbelievable topics like slavery and concubinage, is specifically in this case involving women who are taken as slaves for particular purposes. And rather than try to explain too much of it, I mean, this is a contemporary account from a Muslim imam explaining, when I say that it's a different world, we don't live in that world. Personally, I don't want to live in that world, and here's an example of why.
So what is Islam's view on concubines?
A Muslim man can have up to 4 wives at once. In addition to the 4 wives, he can have an unlimited number of concubines, which refer to women who are basically, they have slave status. When they are owned by her master, a woman owned by her master has to freely give her herself to the master. The master has the right to have relations with her as though she were one of his wives.
And does consent play into this at all, or can we...
The understanding is that by virtue of the fact that she's owned, she does not have the right to consent or to withhold herself from her master. The master has the full right over her, and her consent does not play anything in this relation.
Slave status. So there are demonstrations, indeed riots in some cases, that are breaking out in some parts of England, primarily up in Yorkshire, that area, but not only there. And these are like regular British people who are reacting angrily, violently in some cases, against the problems that have arisen with migrants coming in, many of whom, and maybe a great majority of whom, are Muslim. And they're bringing with them these kinds of ideas that you just heard from the Imam that we just listened to. And they don't agree with it. They don't like it, but they feel as though their culture is being destroyed systematically. And as a way to demonstrate at least an aspect of the truth of what they're saying is look at how the government, the newly elected government, Keir Starmer, the new prime minister, are going heavy-handedly going after British citizens and saying they will feel the full force, the full extent of the law. If they say or do anything in public, they're going to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. If they comment on Facebook or any other social media, if they express their disagreement with or their opposition to the Islamification of their culture, then their own government goes after them. Now, even just in the ensuing 24 hours, there were roving gangs of Muslim men. And you can see the videos on social media. They're very prevalent with machetes and knives and hammers who are going out in the streets and attacking these British citizens for standing up against and protesting against what's going on. And there is no effort being made on the part of the UK government that I can see in any case, especially as I pay close attention to what Keir Starmer is saying, to stop those people from attacking British citizens. So clearly, it's not enough to say something is wrong. Something clearly is deranged on this point. And these citizens, some of whom are doing illegal things, granted, I'm not saying that they're all as pure as the wind-driven snow, but the general subtext to all of this is you've got this increasing anger and resentment that this country that they live in is being subverted with ideas like that. What do you mean ideas like that? Ideas like you can have sex slaves. That if you're a man, you can have up to 4 wives, and that you can have an unlimited number of concubines. What's a concubine? A slave, as he himself said. A woman who has a slave status, owned by a Muslim man, and abused in any way he might want, and no opportunity to say no to it because she has a slave status. And you may say, oh, come on. You look at what's going on in the UK right now, and look at what's going on in other parts, in the case of continental Europe. Look at Germany and in Scandinavia. Sweden, huge problem with this. France, huge problem with this. And it's getting bigger as things go on. And the people in the government like Keir Starmer, who are turning against their own citizens as if they were the problem and failing to address this underlying issue that those people are reacting to, whether well or poorly. I can't even begin to exaggerate how important of a problem this is. And we at least are not at that point in this country. This is not anti-immigrant, and I'm totally in favor of immigration, but lawful, legal, orderly immigration. We should be accepting immigrants to the extent that we can, but that means that in some ways we may not be able to accept unlimited immigrants. Especially when our own citizens here, those who are maybe below the poverty line or people who are in other ways disadvantaged, in the Black community, for example, our first priority should be our own citizens, and then we do the best we can after that. But if you're lavishing opportunities upon people who come here illegally and you're ignoring the people who are here as U.S. citizens, you got a problem. There's something wrong with that. This entire episode of the Patrick Madrid Show is on the Relevant Radio app. The Relevant Radio app is completely free and updated daily with fresh articles, podcasts, and prayers. Don't delay. Download the app today. And thanks for listening.